Hello and welcome back inside the ACU TV or studio for this week's Optimist Newscast. I'm Cindy Varner alongside Carrie Johnston. The mask mandate for instructional spaces has now expanded to include indoor chapel gatherings and will now continue through February 4th. As of Tuesday, there are 25 active cases on campus, 13 of them being new cases related to the ACU community. Cases on campus mark 0.57% of all cases in Abilene. The second round of new member orientation started Friday as prospective members received and accepted their bids from their prospective sorority or fraternity to start the joining process. This is the first semester that freshmen were allowed to rush and join. Roughly 289 women and 98 men took place in the rushing process. The joining process will last 2 weeks for all sororities and fraternities and will end in early February. Bullitt Hall is putting its community spaces to good use by creating multiple fellowship groups for freshmen on campus. The Optimist Allie Jones has more on the story.
I will praise you on the mountain. I will praise you in the mountains in my way. Lord, the sun where my feet are.
Every Sunday night at 9 o'clock, the patio outside of Bullitt Hall fills up with a small group of students. They gather together for fellowship and a little something sweet. The group was seemingly formed by happenstance, but for many of those in attendance, the S'moreship service acts as a way to plug into community and the Word of God. Freshman Julia Blunt talks about how S'moreship grew from a handful of friends to a small group community.
Suddenly people started just coming, and we were like, oh, do you guys want to make a s'more? And so a bunch of people came, and we were just sitting here, and we did a couple worship songs, and me and my friend Ava were like, what if we made this a thing? What if this was our chapel?
Because of its location right outside of a freshman hall, it's not uncommon that S'moreship will get at least one or two strangers to sit in on a song or two. But there's something about S'moreship that brings them back the next week. It is important to note that the location does not deter upperclassmen from joining either. S'moreship worship leader Ethan Strand says that since COVID, more students have felt the disconnect between small groups, and S'moreship is helping to bridge that connection back.
When COVID hit, we lost a lot of the appeal of smaller worship chapels. I feel like there were a lot of those before COVID, and then we all kind of dispersed and came back and we weren't really sure about it. And this came back in as a fully new experience for freshmen, which was awesome. But it literally just started as a bunch of people just coming and worshiping.
No matter your background or your classification, you are always welcome to grab a s'more and join the fellowship.
Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Sing it one more time. Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he.
For The Optimist, I'm Allie Jones reporting.
Up next, men's basketball had 2 straight games at home, losing to Seattle University and winning against California Baptist. Carrie Johnston has more.
Thanks, Cindy. The men's basketball team went up against the WAC's top team in the standings, Seattle University, on Thursday. ACU was on a 4-game losing streak before the matchup. In the first half, Seattle outscored the Wildcats 35-22, making over 50% of their shots compared to the Wildcats, whose score was just under 30%. The closest ACU came to taking the lead was 3 points with 4 minutes left in the first half. The majority of the second half was a back and forth, with the Wildcats slowly chipping away at the score up until the last 7 minutes when Seattle took control. The Wildcats lost 72-62, giving them their 5th straight loss going into their next game. ACU's next home game against California Baptist proved to be light at the end of the tunnel of their losing streak. CBU was ranked in the bottom half of the conference standings with a 2-3 record prior to playing the Wildcats. ACU had a 33-25 lead going into the second half and shot over 40% for field goals and 3-pointers combined. Both teams stepped up their game in the second half, but ACU still outscored CBU, giving the Wildcats the 77-68 win. This one gave the Wildcats their third win in conference play. Brett Tanner said this about the successful game.
We were elite defensively, especially in the first half, and that's just who we are, man. I mean, that was the lack of our offensive production the last couple of weeks has not been on the offensive side. It's been on the defensive side. You know, we weren't scoring off of our turnovers, and you go back and you look at the box score, and there's a big difference, man, between that box score on Saturday, playing against a team who doesn't turn the ball over, and we turned them over a bunch. And I think that was just us and our mentality, and then just releasing some of that pressure off the guys.
Coming out of a successful year that pushed Wildcat baseball into the top 100 of the NCAA collegiate baseball standings, ACU joined the WAC. Familiar opponents include SFA, Lamar, and San Houston, the latter of the three being the Southland team to end the Wildcats' year in the postseason. Other opponents worth noting include Air Force, Texas Tech, and Michigan State. The season opener will be a series against North Dakota State on Friday, February 18th in Abilene. The first conference series will be on the road against UT-RGV, while the first home conference series is against SFA. The Michigan State and Air Force series will both be hosted in Abilene. That's all for this week's Optimist Newscast. I'm Carrie Johnston.
And I'm Cindy Varner. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.